Hi, my name's Zach Varda, and this week on the Student Slant, we take a little bit of a different approach. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, here at Ohio State University, we have a course, COM 2221, which is an intro to media, writing, and editing. It's basically the first course you take on your way to being a journalism major. There are two communication prereqs at the 1000 level, but they don't pertain to journalism. They're just basic communication courses. So this is really the first course where you get into, learning AEP style, learning inverted pyramid. Our podcast, Jake and I, went into one of these classes to introduce them into podcasting as a way of disseminating the news and to give them a chance to take a crack at it and see if it's something that piques their interest and something they want to bring into their news reporting repertoire. And so today you're going to hear from a couple different groups of students that were given, a chance to pick a topic and do a quick 3 to 5 minute, hit on that topic. They were grouped up in groups they already had for a different project, given, I don't know, probably 10 minutes to hash out an idea, and then brought into the studio. You'll hear them introduce their names and their topic and give you their perspective as someone just getting into student journalism. Then, there's two different groups on this episode today. We'll come back in and, after the first group closes out, introduce you to the second group. For the first group, what you're going to hear is about the challenges of being a student journalist, whether that be costs or time or access, what this group of students has found to be their biggest obstacles as they, get their feet wet in the world of student journalism.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Harder.
I'm Jillian Fountain.
I'm Caitlin Beal.
I'm Solia Stevens-Ogaz.
I'm Claire Lefton, and today we are talking about the obstacles and challenges of being a student journalist. Now, something that I run into a lot, especially someone who likes to review films, movies aren't free. They cost money, and if you see a lot of things often, it can often, rack up a pretty high toll on your small college budget. Anyone else run into, budgetary constraints?
Yeah, a big thing also is getting to places, I think. I mean, I know that we are able to get on the bus for free, but I also have a car and I've had to meet people outside of campus and I have to pay for gas. And I know that it's not a big deal for a lot of adults, but I mean, we are college students. So gas money's a big deal. Also, paying for food at interviews.
On the flip side of that, I would say there are times when we get access to free things because we are journalists. Like, I did one article where I was writing about a movie that was coming out. I reached out to the production company, and they ended up sending me a screener of the film, so I was able to watch that film for free, whereas it was actually like a $20 movie to go see, so it was awesome that I got to watch it ahead of time.
Other movie discounts you can do, D-Tix, $3 for a gateway ticket. And also, if you're part of the film studies department in any way, you can get a movie pass that lets you have discount ticket prices.
Oh, that's nice. Gonna take advantage of that. Another obstacle I think is really tremendous for us is being professional at OSU. We are just student journalists and we're just breaking into that title, but we're dealing with people with high up jobs. We have to really present ourselves well and not really step on toes, which is why we talked to Ben Johnson the beginning of the school year. Do you guys run into issues with people not wanting to talk to you because they're afraid of that kind of thing?
Like, time is valuable to them, to their jobs, and to us. But a lot of times, when they want to talk to you, it's not right away, not when it's for us when our assignments are due. They're like, I'll get with you next week, but we don't have that kind of time.
Kind of going off the whole time thing, another challenge is definitely scheduling interviews with people who are working professionals. They have their limited amount of time where they're able to talk, but as students, we also have classes and jobs and other things like that we need to schedule around, so sometimes that can be a challenge, but I don't know, next semester, kind of knowing that, I've scheduled my classes in a way to where I sort of have in my head, like, when people generally like to do interviews, and knowing I'm going to be writing one story a week or something, I sort of put my classes in a way that would allow me to do that.
I completely agree, Kaylee. I know that if we were doing journalism as our day job, we'd definitely have a lot more time to put towards meeting up with people, and we'd be able to meet their schedules. But I've certainly found that, people want to be interviewed. And
yeah, I've even fitting into schedules is pretty hard, especially, having jobs, and sometimes you can't schedule around your job a time. So, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I even had to take my 15-minute break at work to get an interview in with someone because they couldn't do it at a different time. So just doing things like that to try and accommodate people that we're interviewing because, this isn't our full-on career yet. So we have to work around things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely teaching me a lot about sort of how to budget my time and plan things.
Hey, it's Jake, and for our second group, they talk about the unique challenges that come with retaining readers for a student paper.
I'm Miranda Lipton.
I'm Courtney Fulton.
I'm Cameron Thompson.
I'm Skylar Buell.
I'm Mara Mason, and today we're going to be talking about how to retain readers as a student newspaper. So I know that whenever I write an article for the Lantern, or whenever I get an article published with the Lantern, I always share it on Facebook and say hey friends, hey family, this is a cool thing that I wrote. If you want to read it, give it a shot. I know that doesn't always work. People don't always read it. And even students on campus, they don't always read it either. So how do we keep students engaged, and how do we keep students reading?
Well, I think with many things, you kind of need to reach out to people on certain social media outlets. I mean, I know that the Lantern goes through Twitter. I follow them, and I know they do some podcasts, which are really cool to listen to. The Student Slant podcast, shout out. I think with those conversations on those platforms, it's nice for students just to listen to what the Lantern can provide rather than just reading it on print. With all those different outlets, I think it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that we need to go to what the students are interested in. So social media is a big part of that. Many people spend a lot of time on Instagram and Snapchat, and if there was a way to better promote the Lantern on those platforms, I think that would be a great draw to get students interested and get them reading.
I agree. I think specifically with Snapchat, it would be really cool just to see even little few second snippets of what's going on around campus. I think that would be a really cool way to get people really engaged.
I know with that you can have multiple contributors. So if someone was reporting on the go and they say, oh, I found this really cool thing on campus, or I saw this really interesting thing on campus, they can put it right then and there.
Kind of shifting to a different platform, I know that with the sports scene, they do a really good job, like the reporters, they do a really good job of using their own Twitter accounts to reach out to, the public or the students. Colin House Hill does a really good job of going at the games and getting these nice quick videos and photos and insight, and I think that's really cool. That's one thing that they're kind of reaching out to the students, but I mean, they do podcasts, but maybe there's certain aspects that they can go even further, and not just in sports, but like Arts Life's campus. So I just think that's an avenue that they can really improve on. I really don't know what that could be, but I'm sure we can all come together and maybe think of a solution.
So when it comes to retaining readers, how do we do that with a quarter of our readers leaving every year and then that being replaced with freshmen? How do we get freshmen interested, and how do we retain readership when they leave?
I think it would be interesting to incorporate some part of the Lantern into the freshman year experience programs, because if you get the freshmen involved from the start, then it's kind of like they jumped right into it and now they're in. I just think it's important to have people involved from the start.
Because when you get involved from the beginning, your first year, it's hard to leave it at that. When you're involved from the very beginning, it's kind of ingrained in you. It's something that you've gotten into your schedule. It's something that you already have time shelled out for, so you don't have to worry about that going forward. You don't have to worry about shelling out more time, because we all know that we don't really have a ton of that right now.
Kind of shifting back to the freshman experience, I think that when the Lantern sees, like you said, 25% of their audience kind of moving on through graduation, you got another class of people coming in. You want to make a nice first impression and really keep their interest in as they go through the freshman and sophomore and junior. So they say, oh, well, this is something that they did really well. Check this out, and then it kind of spreads from there. So I think that's a pretty important part of reaching freshmen and making sure that their experience is as good as it can be.
So it was great listening to both of those groups give their opinion. First off, just great opinions, great insight, especially listening to them talk about retaining readers at a college newspaper. I really enjoyed that conversation. I think this would have been a really cool thing to have while I was in Com 2221. Podcasting is such a ubiquitous platform right now. You know, there's tons of podcasts coming out, and it's really a great way to get your news in the morning or at night when you're settling down. So I think it's really good to introduce young reporters to this platform. And I think I definitely had a lot of fun working with them. And, you know, everybody comes in and they don't want to wear the headphones in the studio because they don't like the sound of their voice. And that's always fun because I was the same way for probably the first 5 episodes of this. And then you edit an episode and you hear your voice for like 45 minutes straight and you like get over it. So it's just kind of fun to introduce people to this medium, and hopefully some of them will, pick it up and have a podcast that they produce in the future.
Yeah, I really do think it was a necessary exercise to do, and not only just learning how to podcast and talk on a microphone, but it really helps build interviewing skills and talking skills, and it really helps when you need to know how to just have a conversation with someone, because there's no harder conversation than one when there's a microphone directly in front of your face. So I do agree that building these skills and having the opportunity to come into an actual podcast studio and speaking to a microphone that you'd see in a radio station, or really get that experience and build that, I guess, comfort so that you're not as afraid to do it next time. Because like you said, when we first came on here, just were joking actually about doing the outro. Before we were like, oh, what did we say again? And did that sound okay? And now we're just like, oh, hey, that was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Join us next week on the Student Slant.
I think, not to do the cliche teacher professor thing, I learned more from you than you learned from me, but I do think I kind of learned a little bit watching other people podcast. I mean, look, we're only, I think, 15 episodes in. We're not podcasting experts. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. I might like to tell myself that when I go to sleep, but I'm not a podcasting expert. And I think seeing other people and being able to give them advice, and then I was kind of like, oh, that's advice I should be taking. When I get caught up in the moment of the podcast, just take a deep breath and have a conversation. It's something, being completely candid, we've talked about with the Student Slant is us being more conversational. So giving them that advice was also helpful for me to be like, oh, this is what it sounds like when someone's rigid. I need to be more conversational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't wait to do it next time. That was a great discussion. Join us next week on the Student Slant for more student perspective.